Jordan Peterson, you'll remember when he went on to Joe Rogan's show, Jordan Peterson advocated for some type of law or something that would prevent males impregnating or distracting the majority of women.
And the implication of that part of the New York Times article was that I wanted to, take nubile young women at the point of a gun under state enforcement and deliver them to useless men. It's like no one has ever believed that.
Jordan Peterson is the guy who came up with a brilliant idea of forced monogamy.
The journalist knew perfectly well what I meant by enforced monogamy.
Wasn't that going to take women away from attractive men and go, you've met your quota?
No one has ever believed that.
What you're saying is that you are supposed to outsource your pain for being involuntarily celibate onto other people and onto women.
I think the solution is that they need to become attractive to women.
Yes, that is the solution. Yes. There's no doubt about that.
Here, just let's watch him cry just a little bit more.
I thought the marginalized were supposed to have a voice.
Oh, I can't believe you criticized me.
Oh my God.
It's very difficult to understand how demoralized people are.
If everyone associated with that we see on that screen evaporated and some weird thing got sent to a different time and place zone, I would be perfectly happy.
Jordan Peterson has been making the rounds in the media again, mostly due to his interactions with Piers Morgan and Olivia Wilde. In her new movie, Don't Worry, Darling, Olivia Wilde supposedly models the villain of the movie after Jordan Peterson. As far as I can tell, Olivia Wilde's new movie could be seen as an argument against the newfound traditionalism that Jordan Peterson seems to represent.
Enter Frank's podcast about victory, a virtual world in which everything is perfect, at least for the men. If you join Frank's victory program, you go back to the 1950s when men ruled the world and women quote-unquote knew their place.
The character who is modeled after Peterson, named Frank, talks about chaos being an enemy to progress in the trailer. The movie has themes of control, facade, and the corruption of purpose. To me, this narrative is far more representative of Hollywood culture rather than any kind of movement Jordan Peterson represents. More recently, he was on Piers Morgan, where the drama with Olivia was brought up and he got a bit emotional.
The film director Olivia Wilde has a new movie out, which she says is based on you, this insane man, this pseudo-intellectual hero to the incel community. Incel being these weirdo loner men who are despicable in many ways. Is that you? Are you the intellectual hero to these people?
Sure, why not? People have been after me for a long time because I've been speaking to disaffected young men. What a terrible thing to do that is.
To me, it's clear he's not upset about the Olivia Wilde drama, rather he's upset about the disregard of suffering. However, some media organizations, like the Young Turks, have been quick to downplay this as petty drama.
It is just Karen tears after you were the one to call the cops on somebody else for barbecuing and doing nothing wrong. You trolled somebody and then you're the victim. Oh my God.
I don't really understand how being part of the self-help movement can qualify you for being a troll, but alright, Young Turks, we'll go with that. Jordan Peterson makes it clear he doesn't really care about Hollywood trying to villainize him.
But when Olivia Wilde made those comments, the first thing I did was go look at the preview for her movie, which I quite liked. I thought I would go see that movie probably, and perhaps I will. It didn't really bother me. My family and I talked about it right away, and we were able to respond to it with some degree of humor.
He cares about the blatant disregard of the hardships of half of the world's population.
All these men who are alienated, it's like they're lonesome and they don't know what to do, and everyone piles abuse on them.
There are some great examples of just how far this disregard goes in one of Shuanhad's most recent videos.
But did he die? No. So who cares? Did the boy complain? That 14-year-old didn't complain about it, I guarantee. His parents did. Yeah, good parents then. I would be a little concerned if an adult was touching my child too. What? He probably wanted it. Good for him. Good for him. Glamorous. Lucky boy. Lucky kid. We, the jury, find the defendant not guilty. Minors can't consent. Cool. But was he unwilling? What? It's a child. They can't consent. That's like the whole thing. Men can consent. When a boy becomes a man could be anywhere from 12 to 35?
And those are just the surface level, non-explicit examples. It gets far worse. I definitely recommend checking that video out, especially if you're a bit more unaware of that discrepancy of consent. No, minors cannot consent, and it doesn't matter if they're boys or girls, and it's absolutely insane that I have to clarify this at all. It speaks volumes as to what little boys are expected to be able to go through and stay silent about. It's disgusting.
Kind of force women into Cocoa Puffs, right? Which is not about uplifting those guys. It's about putting women into Cocoa Puffs. Okay,
No,
I have to stop there to give you enormous credit. I mean, I hadn't heard it before. Describing Jordan Peterson's crying as Cocoa Puffs. Okay, perfect. That's exactly right. We're not going to force monogamy on anyone. We're also not going to take women away from attractive men and go, you've met your quota. I mean, because I think he needs therapy.
So enforced monogamy has nothing to do with introducing new legislation. It's more about a cultural opposition to hookup culture. Whether you think hookup culture is a good thing or a bad thing, the only people who are talking about legislating romance are the people who are blowing what Jordan Peterson has to say out of proportion. Not to mention, this was all clarified on the Joe Rogan Experience like 4 years ago.
And the implication of that part of the New York Times article was that I wanted to, take nubile young women at the point of a gun under state enforcement and deliver them to useless men. It's like no one has ever believed that.
But apparently that's good enough for a segment opener on Sam Cedar's show.
Jordan Peterson, you'll remember when he went on to Joe Rogan's show, Jordan Peterson advocated for some type of law or something that would prevent males in a society who are essentially impregnating or distracting the majority of women and therefore leaving involuntarily celibate men without options to date.
So no, Jordan Peterson didn't advocate for some type of law, Mr. Cedar.
Some type of law or something.
And that just speaks to the power of false memories. No, media is not immune to false memories. In fact, given the media's extraordinary bias, they are probably more susceptible to false memories, so that's great. But media organizations have whole teams of fact checkers. Apparently that's not the case for Sam Cedar.
And fine, if you want to have a specialty where you talk about young white men and speaking to them, that's fine. It's just about what you're saying. And what you're saying is that you are supposed to outsource your pain for being involuntarily celibate onto other people and onto women, and that's the problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is like you said, what he's saying, which is that you're alienated from society, and that's actually because you haven't cleaned your room and sorted your own mess out. Or graduating from that level, it's because there are evil feminists and wokesters around there perverting society against you.
Both of their assessments are way off, and they only got one thing kind of right. While Jordan Peterson does in fact talk about cleaning your room, he doesn't talk about a messy room being the root of everybody's problems. He talks about cleaning your room because it's something that most people have the power to take responsibility of. It's not for the sake of having a clean room, it's for the sake of tending to your responsibilities as an adult. It's not such a crazy notion that somebody should focus on the things that are at least somewhat within their control before worrying about the things that are far out of their reach. Luckily, the Majority Report with Sam Cedar has some sound advice for us.
And the reality is, if there's anything going on against young men that hasn't in the past, it's basically equality in the workplace and things like that. And and opportunities that are drying up. And the solution to that is basically decommodifying essentials and making less of your worth come from the job that you have. And you'll have more time to socialize and figure out how to talk to women if you don't have to work like 5 days a week for a job that's not paying you enough.
All right, there's a lot to take in with what he said there, and I have no idea how this guy has a job working for a political commentator. Decommodifying essentials will do nothing to increase the quality or the quantity of available jobs. Then you have to think about, well, if people are working less and getting more free stuff, how is that sustainable? And finally, just because a man has more free time doesn't mean women are going to want to hang out with him. And it definitely doesn't mean he's going to use that free time to become more socially adept. For me, some of my greatest realizations regarding character and behavior happened at work. It's not too crazy to say you're more likely to engage in degenerate behavior outside of work rather than inside of work. Whether you like Jordan Peterson or not, the reality of the situation is he has helped thousands of people get their lives together, and saying thousands is a low ball. I understand this can be quickly forgotten for the sake of entertainment and news media, but if you're going to argue against his ideas, you can at least try to somewhat accurately represent them. This endless strawman approach is an obvious mark of desperation. Alright, that's gonna have to do it for this one. Shout out to the best subscriber squad in all of YouTube. I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
I think he needs therapy. I'm not a therapist.